What's up, you fellow D-Gens? Welcome back to the Us vs. Them YouTube channel. I'm your host, Vince, and today we're going to break down the fight card for the upcoming fights tomorrow. UFC Fight Night, Lopez versus Silva. There's a lot of good fights in this card, and there's underdogs that I could see winning this card, so there's definitely some opportunities to make some money. So let's get into this shit. First fight we're going to break down is Rodrigo Cesanedo versus Danil Donchenko. Cesanedo is coming in at a plus 172 underdog. That line's been shifting a little bit throughout the week. And Donchenko is sitting at a minus 205 favorite. Guys, if you don't know, this is the finale for the Ultimate Fighter for the most recent season, the Daniel Cormier versus Chael Sonnen season. This is the title fight for that. Got to watch some of those guys fight a little bit. I didn't follow that season, honestly. I haven't watched the Ultimate Fighter since fucking college. And if you can't tell by looking at me, it's been a minute. So I don't follow that anymore. But the one thing I did notice from breaking this fight down is this is a classic grappler versus striker fight. But that doesn't mean that they can't do everything. I think both of these guys are pretty well rounded. When I'm looking at Cesanedo, I think he's got pretty decent takedowns. He's also showed that he can, when he secures takedowns, he's got pretty solid control time on top. He's able to hold guys down, has good forward pressure. One thing we saw in the Cesanedo fight against Jeffrey Creighton with Ultimate Fighter fight is that he's really relentless on getting those takedowns. He was pressuring for the first, I don't know, it took him maybe 2.5 minutes to get the first takedown in the first round. But he showed that he's going to stick to the game plan. He's focused on getting his takedowns and getting the fight where he's comfortable. And like I said, he's got smothering top pressure, and he uses those things to wear opponents down and take their cardio away. Another thing I like about Cesanedo is that he's always looking to either do damage or advance positions so he can work for a submission on top. That's why he wants to get the fight and make it a grappling fight, especially when he's on top, because when he gets on top, he's very dangerous. One thing about Cesanedo's striking is that his wrestling usually sets it up. We've seen this before a million times, where if somebody's very focused on the wrestling, all of a sudden the hands kind of open up for him. When he's striking, he prefers to kind of brawl. He throws big punches, though, and he's got big power. I watched a fight against a guy named Jonathan Ramsey on the regional scene, and he knocked Ramsey out cold with an overhand. So he uses his grappling and the threat of grappling to set up his hands. The one hole that I saw in Donchenko's game is sometimes he can be taken down. His takedown defense isn't maybe where it needs to be. I'm not saying it sucks. I think both these guys are pretty good. But that's just a hole in his game, and that's definitely going to be something that Cesanedo is going to be looking to exploit in this fight. Like I said, Donchenko is a well-rounded fighter. He probably prefers to strike. I think in this fight, he's definitely going to prefer to strike. But he's a well-rounded dude. But he trains at Tiger Muay Thai. So obviously, the Muay Thai is going to be, or the striking in general is going to be where it needs to be. He's got really nice elbows from in close if a fighter gets in. And I think he's probably going to lean on that a little bit, especially given the fact that Cesanedo is going to be looking to get inside and brawl and then lower his level and get a double leg takedown. One thing I really like about Donchenko is his ability to take damage and keep moving forward. He showed in a fight on the regional scene against a guy named Kanyabek Zanyabek Ulu. That's my best. He showed in that fight that he can take damage and keep moving forward. He kept looking to finish the fight. He knew he's probably down on the scorecards going in the 5th round, and he was still doing everything he can to finish the fight. And that's something I really like about him. One thing I really like about both of these guys, honestly, is their cardio. They both have high-level cardio. We've seen that in every fight that I watched. I didn't see these guys slow down or get tired. They're always looking to implement their game plan and eventually find the damage they're looking for and find the finish that they're looking for. So I really appreciate that, and I think we're definitely going to be hopefully in for an exciting fight in this one. For my official prediction, I'm going to go with Cesanedo. He's the slight underdog. I think that there's definitely more value in that pick for sure. But I also think that the slight hole in the takedown defense for Donchenko is going to play a big factor here, especially going up against a grappler that he knows is going to try to get the fight to the ground. Another thing I noticed about Donchenko is when he's fighting a wrestler, he's a little bit more hesitant with his striking. So he can't get up on the scorecards and his mentality, I guess. I think Cesanedo is going to get this one done, and I think he's going to get this one done by decision. I'm pretty confident in that pick. Next fight we're going to get into is Alice Pereira versus Montserrat Rendon. Pereira is sitting at a minus 148 favorite, and Rendon is sitting at a plus 126 underdog. One thing to note really quickly, this is not Alex Pereira's sister. I fucking made that mistake because I knew he had a little sister that fought. So when I started researching this a little bit, I thought it was his sister. It's not. When you're watching her fight, especially when you already think that's Alex Pierre's sister, it's really easy to see why. When I first started watching her fights, without knowing that, I was like, well, I mean, I see some similarities to Alex Pierre. This is kind of the girl version of Alex Pierre. Especially the fact that Alex Pierre is only 19 years old. She's making her her UFC debut. And the fights that I've got to watch, obviously they're all in the regional scene. She's got really long arms. She utilizes her range well. She does a really good job at making sure she stays at the very end of her punches, so she can get the maximum, I guess, distance out of her range. She's got a nice 1-2, snappy kicks to the legs and body. She works up to the head really nicely too with her kicks. And another thing I liked about her, she's got a nice Superman punch. I've never seen somebody mix in Superman punches so well. But she was throwing, like, in the fight, what was that? The fight against a girl named Samara Santos, which is her best win right now. Not super high level, but that was the best win. And she threw a couple, like 2 or 3 Superman punches at every round and landed on all of them. So I think just the mixing in all the striking that she does kind of sets up more exotic strikes like that for her. Pierre fights pretty, like, ferocious. That's the word I wrote down when I was researching her fights. She's got a ferocious style to her. She's looking for damage all the time, and she's looking to put girls away, which is refreshing to see on the WMMA scene. I know I talk a lot of shit about that, but I'm not the only one. Welcome to MMA YouTube. But you know, because her striking is so ferocious and so aggressive sometimes, she can also be kind of left open to counter punches, which I've observed a little bit. There isn't a lot of footage of Pierre doing a lot of grappling. I saw a couple other fights where she had some grappling, but it's nothing worth noting. When she's fighting girls who are like 1-7 and shit like that, you take what you can get sometimes when you're doing research. But the one thing I did notice is that she had decent top control. In the Santos fight, her best win to date, when she was able to get takedowns, she was able to keep the fight to the ground and find some damage with mixing in some ground and pound. I do like her top control, and I do like also her ability to mix in takedowns. Like I said, she is predominantly a striker, but when you have a striker who was willing to go for takedowns every once in a while, it makes them even more dangerous in their striking. Rendon's striking is really just not good, honestly. I saw in a fight that she was doing rangefinders from, I'm telling you, the end of her punches was 2 feet away from her opponent, and I'm just sitting there thinking in my head, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, the striking is not good. It just goes to show me that her range management is not good too. You're fighting too far away at that point. If you want to be that far away, that's okay to reset or whatever. But if you're fighting that far away to do rangefinders and shit, like I said, her range management is just not where it needs to be. One thing I did notice is she's got a decent counter right hand. She has some good power behind it. She's a relatively slow striker, especially compared to other girls that I've seen her fight in this division. Her hands are not as fast as they probably need to be. But one thing I did notice is that the timing just might be a little different, and sometimes she can still land. When she lands, she seems to do damage on her opponents, and that could be something that might play a factor, especially given the fact that Pierre can rush in sometimes. Rendon's path to victory is definitely going to be in her grappling. She's got a decent body lock takedown, but her leg attacks aren't maybe where they need to be as well. She doesn't lower her level good enough or quick enough maybe. But yeah, when she lowers her level, she's kind of telegraphing the takedowns a little bit. But mixing in the body lock takedown is where she's going to have her most success. I think her path to victory is going to be on the clinch, on the cage though. Even if she's not able to get Pierre down, racking up control time against the cage, although super fucking boring, is probably the path to least resistance for her to get a win here. One thing I do like about Rendon is that compared to Pierre, she does have the tougher strength of schedule. This is going to be her 3rd fight in the UFC. She's currently 1-1 in the UFC. So obviously fighting UFC caliber girls in her last 2 fights, she's used to fighting higher level opponents. I mean, Pierre, on the other hand, has fought in tomato cans. She's 5-0 at 19 years old. Just looking at the numbers alone, she should be fighting tomato cans right now. This is the stage in her career when she should be fighting girls that are just not good. But to go from the caliber that she's at to the UFC is quite a big jump. Although she's dominating girls, we don't really know what she looks like when she faces resistance. We also don't know what her cardio looks like because she's getting girls out of there pretty early. So I don't really think that she's going to be looking to get takedowns too much this fight, given the fact that she's going to be a lot better in striking than Rendon is. But there's just a lot of X factors about Pierre. For my official prediction, even though I kind of shit on her a little bit, I'm going to stick with Pierre, and this is the reason why. I think that the possibility of her getting taken down against Rendon is there for sure. The body lock takedown is going to be available. But when I saw past fights against Rendon's fight against Zelezniakova, she was taken down, but she was able to work back to her feet pretty quickly. So it shows that her top control maybe isn't where it needs to be. And then the Vidal fight. Vidal rolled into a heel hook to create a scramble that she used just to work back to her feet too. So when she gets on top of girls, she's not really doing what she needs to do on top. So that's one thing. And obviously, Pierre is going to have the striking advantage. So as long as she's able to either sprawl and brawl and stay out of the clinch, and if she does get taken down and work back to her feet, she's going to be the winner in this fight. So I'm going to take Pierre, the 19-year-old debut fighter, by decision. Next fight we're going to get into is Alessandro Costa versus Alden Correa. Costa is sitting at a minus 405 favorite, and Correa is at plus 320 underdog. Correa is making his UFC debut, so there isn't a whole lot of footage on him that's worth breaking down, to be honest with you. But the one thing that's easy to note about Correa is he leans on his grappling to win fights. He's got decent takedowns and decent top control. And when guys are able to work back to their feet, he does a really nice job of dragging them back down. So he uses that to kind of wear on their cardio and wear on them just physically until he can start to impose his will. The best thing about Correa's striking is probably the fact that he's able to blend in his striking into his grappling pretty well. He's not known for his striking skills, and in the tape that I was able to watch, he doesn't extend his combos, for my liking at least. He's typically throwing one shot at a time, whether it's a leg kick or a one punch or whatever it is, but it's usually one strike at a time. That shows that he's not super proficient on his feet so far. Costa's a more well-rounded fighter. He can fight kind of wherever the fight goes. He seems to he leans on his striking more to get victories. He has really nice boxing, really fast with his hands. He also keeps a really high guard too, just to protect himself. And that's the main reason why he's never been knocked out before. I really like Costa's his willingness to go to the body when he's striking. Like I said, he's predominantly a boxer, so he mixes in the body shots to open up the head shots, and he does that really well. He does really nice damage to the body. He also has a really nice jab. He's got a power jab even that he does. We saw that in the what fight was that? The Kevin Boras fight. He knocked Kevin Boras out in the first round. Was it the first round? No, it was the beginning of the second round. But at the end of the first round, he stuck Boras with a jab that kind of ran into as well and sat him down. So it shows that he's got power in both hands. Costa also has really nice leg kicks. I think that's going to be the biggest factor here in this fight is his leg kicks. We saw also in that Boras fight, he started going to the legs in the second round, and that's where he really did his damage. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 leg kicks that he hit Boras with, and he couldn't walk anymore. He had to fight off his back, and that's what prompted the ground and pound, which prompted the TKO win. So, I mean, he's going to take the legs away. I think of Correa early in this fight, and that's going to be a big factor here. For my official prediction, I'm going with Costa on this one. I do believe that if he is taken down, he's not going to get held down. He showed in all the tape that I've watched that he does not accept bottom position and does a really good job of working back to his feet without taking punishment, without putting himself in risky submission situations. And he also has just a decent takedown defense in general. So he's going to lean on that as well. I think the leg kicks, like I said, is going to play a factor. They're going to start slowing down Correa, and eventually I think Costa is going to get the knockout. So I'm going to go with Alessandro Costa by KO. The next fight we're going to be breaking down is Zachary Reese versus Cedricus Dumas. Reese is coming in at a minus 235 favorite, and Dumas is coming in at a plus 194. Zachary Reese has displayed in the past that he is a lightning starter. I mean, he starts out super quick. He's got a lot of first-round finishes. He also gets finished sometimes in the first round, but that's just kind of how he fights. He's kind of live and die by the sword. He's got big power in his hands, and he throws nice snappy kicks to the body. I think he'll be working those body kicks this weekend against Cedricus Dumas or Dumas or whatever the fuck you want to call him. One thing I don't really like about his striking, though, is sometimes when he's in the pocket, he'll drop his hands a little bit, and he kind of makes him susceptible to getting counterstruck, thunderstruck, whatever. But, if you're in the pocket, you got to either stay and fucking fight and bang, or you got to get out and, keep your guard up at the same time. But staying there in the pocket with your hands down is not what he needs to do against Dumbass. Reese doesn't really lean on his grappling too much. He's not, I mean, he does have submissions off his back. I think he's got a couple arm bars off his back. That's how he won the Contender Series fight. So he can be dangerous on his back for sure. It's not something I really value in an MMA fighter. It's just a kind of a icing on the cake type thing if you have that skill or that asset to your fighting style. He's just a little bit too comfortable being on his back because he's had a little bit of success on his back, and he's way too accepting of the bottom position, especially for somebody that doesn't have the best takedown defense. There are aspects of Reese's game that almost seems like he's still kind of new to the sport. And I guess when you look at like when his career started and shit like that, he is still relatively new. But there's things that he should be doing that he could fix in between fight camps, even from one practice to another. And one example of that is making your guard higher. You know, his guard is just a little bit too low. He just likes to throw from that angle, I guess. I don't know what it is. Like I said, he's got big power, so it works sometimes, but when it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Zach is there to get hit. I mean, his guard is just a little bit too low for my comfort. Cedricus Dumas has a decent striking. I think he's going to have the power, or not the power. He's going to have the speed advantage in this fight. Reese is definitely going to have the power advantage. But, you know, he also has a really nice jab. He's got a really slick jab, and he mixes in kicks as well. He typically is headhunting a little bit, so he's not really setting up his shots. I think kicks to the legs, starting off early and kind of working his way up will help him a lot. But he just doesn't seem like the fighter that's going to make those adjustments. He's fought in pretty much the exact same style the entire time he's been in the UFC. When I watch Cedricus Dumas fight, the one thing that I get the impression of is that he's kind of terrified of getting his lights put out, which is something that you kind of have to accept as a fighter. I mean, you're voluntarily locking yourself in a cage against another professional who has a wide variety of skills. You know, you could break an arm, leg, whatever. You could get knocked out, all these things. He seems like that's his biggest fear. And every time somebody enters in range or they're counter-striking or whatever, he's so quick to just put his guard up and put his head down. So obviously it makes him a little bit harder to land those looping punches, but those uppercuts and knees to up the middle are going to be wide open for Reese. Another thing that's going to be available for Reese is the fact that he's going to be, I mean, all the targets are exposed. He doesn't have to just go headhunting if that happens. He can mix it into the body or anywhere else. So I don't like how predictable he is in his striking in the sense of his striking defense. Every single fight that I watch, he's so quick to go to the guard and head all the way down. I think these guys are almost kind of bad matchups made for each other. Honestly, Reese is really good at pressuring forward and landing those big strikes, but like I said, he sometimes sits too much in the pocket and can be blasted on with, just counter strikes. But another thing about Reese is he's there to be taken down. And Cedricus Dumas has shown in the past that he will mix in takedowns in fights, which a lot of people don't really see coming. And that could be something that could work in his benefit here, especially given the fact that Reese has been taken down pretty easily in the past. For my official prediction, I'm still leaning with Zachary Reese on this one. I think his power is going to be the biggest factor in this fight. Like I said, I think Cedricus Dumas has never had his lights knocked out like entirely before. He's been knocked out, TKO'd and shit, but he's never been put out cold. And Zachary Reese is somebody that can put him out cold, and I think he knows that. So once he's probably going to come in very confident. I don't see why he wouldn't be. He's a professional fighter, for fuck's sakes. But, at some point, probably early on in the fight, he's going to get hit with a big shot early by Reese, and that's going to start taking his mentality out of the fight. That's when I see him start working in some wrestling, and I'm going on a limb on this one, guys, and I'm going to say that Zachary Reese gets this one done by knockout or by submission, but predicting a method of victory on this fight is super hard because the reality is both of these guys have the tendency to win this fight by KO, submission, or points. So this can go one of 6 ways. So I have not a lot of confidence in this one. Moving on to the next fight, we have Jesus Aguilar sitting at a plus 176 underdog versus Luis Gurelli. Gurelli sitting at a minus 210 favorite. There wasn't a whole lot for me to note in the striking for Aguilar. I think he's a well-rounded fighter in general, so he's competent on his feet. I don't think that he's going to be at a disadvantage, especially in this fight on his feet. One thing I really like about Aguilar is his leg kicks. He's got nice, powerful leg kicks, really snappy. They seem to play a factor pretty much in every fight. But he's also got big power in his hands. He showed in the Shannon Ross fight, he threw a big overhand right and caught Ross. First punch that he connected with put him out lights out, ice cold. But he was able to knock Shannon Ross out. So it shows that he's got big power in that, especially in that overhand right. This fight is obviously in the flyweight division, so obviously I'm breaking this fight down, and I do always think that flyweights probably are the most skilled guys on the entire planet. You have to be overall good at pretty much everything to compete, especially at this high of a level in the UFC. The one thing that I noticed is that Gorelli's hands seem like exceptionally slow, though. These guys are also not only well-rounded, but they're also very fast. Gorelli, I mean, I'm not saying he's a slow guy or he's got slow hands in general, but compared to the people he's going to be fighting in the UFC, his hands seem like they're just 1 or 2 steps behind in speed. Gorelli's 0-1 in the UFC, so there isn't a whole lot of footage on him. He got knocked out by Ode Osborne in the second round, but he was able to win a fight against Nick Piccini on the Contender Series. They both are wrestlers. Gorelli is a D2 college wrestler, and he was able to beat Nick Piccini, who's a 3-time D1 All-American. I'm sure that gave him a lot of confidence, just knowing that, he got that feather in his cap, I guess. But he utilizes his wrestling pretty nicely in fights. He got a nice body lock in the Ode Osborne fight, so it shows that he can utilize that takedown, but I know he can mix in leg attacks as well, just given his wrestling experience. I think Gorelli's going to have success in finding takedowns, but I think just because Aguilar is pretty, that's kind of a hole in his game, is getting taken down, but he's going to be really fucking hard to hold down, man. That dude seems like he's a nightmare to hold down. He's like a giant wet noodle. He's always flopping and squirming all over the place, kind of sometimes doing a little bit unconventional shit, but if he is taken down, he doesn't really seem to care. I mean, we've seen him in a couple fights. It was the Mateus Mondinsa fight. Mateus, whatever. You guys look it up. And we also saw in the Stuart Nickel fight, both those dudes was able to take him down, and both of them found full mount too, and was able to land shots, transition to the back, try to go for a rear naked choke, both guys, and they were able to get it. He just puts himself in really bad positions and fights his way out of it. So I do think that he's going to be able to get out if he is taken down in this fight. I think another reason why Aguilar is not really that concerned about the takedowns is because he's got a hell of a guillotine choke. You guys already know, I hate submissions off your back. I hate when guys give up position to go for a submission. That's just against the rules of fighting. But this dude has 11 wins in his professional career, and 6 of them come by way of guillotine. He's gotten his last 2 wins, I believe, are by way of guillotine. So he is known to submit guys from that position. So I think that's something Gorelli, especially given that he's got folk-style wrestling experience, the way we train is we kind of take those shots and we look down the opponent's back, but we're giving up our neck when we're doing that. So I know that he knows this. This is basic shit. But I just wonder if sometimes muscle memory will kick in and he'll give his neck up right up to a guy who's used to taking necks. For my official prediction, I'm going to go with Jesus Aguilar on this one. I'm going with the dog. I think he's got the skill set to beat Gorelli. If he gets taken down, I trust that he's going to be able to work back to his feet. And when he's on his feet, he's going to have the clear advantage. I don't want to say clear, but he's going to have the advantage there for sure in the striking. I think it's a safe pick to pick for that underdog. And he also has the submission threat too. Like I said, 6 gillies. He's got a couple other submissions too. So he's known to make dudes tap out. I think Gorelli is going to be able to stay safe enough as far as the grappling goes. So I don't think he's going to give his neck up. But I do think that Aguilar is going to score the points when it comes to damage just because he's going to be doing more of the striking. So I'm going to go with Jesus Aguilar in this one by decision. Next fight up, we got Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos. Suarez is sitting at a minus 420 favorite, and Lemos is sitting at a plus 340 underdog. I'm telling you guys this right now, the line is off on this one. It's off bad. This is a fight we can make money on. Stay tuned for this. We know who Tatiana Suarez is. I mean, she just fought for the title in her most recent fight against Weili. She's obviously a grappler, a wrestler mentality. She's looking to impose her will because she's got a really, really big frame for the division. I have no idea how she makes the weight, but she uses that big frame to pressure girls, go look for grappling exchanges, whether that's double unders or, kind of leg attacks. Sometimes she throws in some leg attacks. I'm not saying she sucks at it, but she seems like she doesn't change her level like she needs to. But, she uses her wrestling to set up to get those grappling exchanges and then methodically work until she can get the submission she's looking for. She's built her career on this, but we also saw in the Weili fight that if she can't get the takedown, she can get completely taken out of the fight. Weili gave up the first round, she got taken down, but then she eventually got a reversal and kept fighting the style that she fights and defended those takedowns, and it became a masterclass for Wei Li. It's one of those fights that's going to go down as far as her legacy is one that she's going to be remembered for. One thing that makes me a little worried about Amanda Lemos is that she was taken down and out-wrestled and controlled against Gina Jandiroba. I'm not really holding that one against her too much. Jandiroba is a monster on the ground. She's a monster everywhere she goes. Now that Wei Li gave up the title, I think she's #1 in the world. I think she's gonna win. But stay tuned for that video when we break it down. But there's no shame in getting out wrestled by her. But I think the way she was getting out wrestled by her is ways that I don't think Suarez is gonna be able to do. I think the things that work against Lemos is leg attacks and scrambles. She's got a very strong frame too. You can tell she's a very strong girl for the division. And that's where Jandiroba was getting her victories at. She was going for those leg attacks because she was changing levels. She doesn't want to fight her tall where she's going to be able to use her big frame. She's going to change her level and attack her legs and use that technique to get the fight to the ground. When she did get to the ground, anytime there was a scramble, Jandiroba won that scramble. She's the best scrambler probably in the world in this division. So there's no shame in that. But I asked myself, can Tatiana Suarez take her down with double legs? No. I don't think she can. I don't think she changes her level good enough. And I also ask myself, if they do get in a scramble, is Lemos going to be able to work back to her feet, or is Tatiana Suarez going to be able to hold her down? I think, and when scrambles happen, Lemos is going to be able to work back up. I don't think that Tatiana Suarez, this is the reason why I think this. She got most of her career, her neck's banged up, her knees banged up. She took 4 years off in the middle of her career, during the peak time of her career. And she doesn't seem like she's came back and moved the best way that she used to before. She's got all the wrestling experience in the world, but I think that she's just a step behind in the wrestling and the grappling than she was before. For my official prediction, you guys can probably already tell, I'm going to go with Amanda Lemos to get this one done. I think that she's the biggest dog on the card that I think is going to win, based on my predictions for sure. The one thing she's going to have to really do is defend the body lock takedowns, and I think that's something she can do. Like I said, she's strong as well. She's strong for the division. I think Suarez is going to be stronger than her, but I don't think she's got that big of a gap in the strength where she's going to be able to muscle Lemos around like she's used to doing to other girls. So I think as long as Lemos doesn't get taken down early in fights and get controlled, she's going to be able to still win rounds because she's going to be the better striker for sure. Another thing Lemos has to worry about, or not worry about, one thing she has to focus on is to not overextend on her striking. She likes to throw with big power, but obviously if you throw with big power and you overextend, you're making yourself susceptible to the wrestling. And I could eventually eat my words in the sense of I think that's where Tatiana Suarez can get her double legs. Lemos showed in their last couple fights that she's fighting more reserved and more patient and fighting the strikes that she's looking for. So given all that information, I think I'm going to go with Amanda Lemos on this one. I'm not super confident in it, but with the line how it is, I'm really confident in that line. So give me Lemos by decision. Next fight we're going to get into, I know this is a long video. Thanks for hanging in there with me. A lot of good information. I've worked my fucking ass off on this one, so hopefully you're still watching. But we're going to get into Joaquim Silva, who's sitting at a +100 underdog, fighting Claudio Puelles, who's at a -118 favorite. Anybody that's watched Claudio Puelles fight will know that he's going to be looking to get the fight to the ground. Depending on who he's fighting will determine how good he is in the striking to set up those leg attacks, or just those attacks in general to get the fight to the ground. Everybody that does grappling knows that you can't just go out there and do something. I can't just go out there and double leg you. I got to set you up. I got to make it seem like you don't know when it's coming. So when it does happen, you just didn't see it coming. Same thing with striking too. The strikes that work the best are the ones that you don't see coming. You don't see strikes coming because you set it up. There's no way I can just go up there and punch you in the face. Nobody's going to let me do that. Fighters don't let professional fighters do that shit. So, Puelles' striking sometimes, I don't even know where I was going with that, but I'm going to keep running with it. But sometimes his striking can be a little clunky, and like I said, it just depends on who he's fighting. If he's fighting a he's a southpaw. So if he's fighting somebody that's an orthodox fighter, the body kick is going to be available for him. And Joaquin Silva is an orthodox fighter, so I think the body kick is going to be available. He's going to be able to snap those body kicks in there, and that's going to be able to set his hands up, which is also going to be able to implement his wrestling or his grappling in general. Poyas does a really nice job of getting the fight to the ground when he's able to set it up, like I've already said. He's got really nice body locks and really nice leg attacks. One thing I did notice too is when he gets the fight to the ground, he does a pretty good job of keeping the fight there. But sometimes he plays jiu-jitsu. And what I mean by that, you guys probably already know what this means, but he can pull guard, he can do shit like that. He can give up positions to keep himself safe. Jiu-jitsu, if you're playing jiu-jitsu, you're not really scrambling unless you're attacking a submission or defending a submission. Scrambling in wrestling is just, I don't want to lose my dominant position. Jiu-jitsu, if you're playing jiu-jitsu, you don't always think that way. And sometimes he plays jiu-jitsu a little too much for my liking. Puelles does a really good job of creating, of just being unorthodox on the bottom. He's got 3 knee bar submissions in the UFC. Not just 3 professionally, 3 knee bar submissions in the UFC. He's got like 5 or something like that in total. So he is really good at being funky, doing umanari rolls to get that leg submission. Anybody that gets lower level submissions, lower like extremity submissions in the UFC, it's either you land into it or you're really fucking good at it. The fact that he's got 3 tells me he's really fucking good at them. For Joaquin Silva, especially with his grappling, one thing I've noticed is that sometimes he kind of accepts bottom position a little too much. We've seen in past fights. I mean, he fought Arman Tsarukyan and accepted bottom. Arman Tsarukyan's pretty fucking tough, though, so you kind of get a little pass with that. Well, I've also seen in other fights where he's a little bit too accepting of bottom position, and he's also can be taken down. We've seen him get taken down in past fights. One thing I like about Silva is his ability to stay calm in fights. He doesn't ever let the moment get too big for him, and he kind of stays present with what he's doing. And it allows him to kind of keep his heart rate down, keep his brain energy low, or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know. But he's able to just not let the moment get too big. He paces himself really nicely in fights, and he also has really good cardio. So his energy level stays pretty consistent, but I guess in the sense of how much energy he has left in the tank. That's also kind of a double-edged sword for him, though, because I've also seen him start really slowly in fights. He's kind of notorious for starting a little bit too slow. It's really hard when you're fighting 3-round fights to give a round away, especially the first round. Now you're fighting down the whole time. You're fighting a little bit desperate, maybe more desperate than you have to be. I don't think he ever lets himself get too desperate or too overextended, but, you know, fighting down already, being down 1-0 is not a good place to be, especially in a 3-round fight. Silva has big power in his hands. That's what he's known most for. If he catches somebody clean, if he catches Puelles clean, or anybody else for that matter, he can really do some damage and knock him out. He caught Arman at one point and put Arman in a bad position for a little bit. Arman was able to lean on his wrestling to work through that really quickly, get on top, and recover. And Puelles can maybe do that as well, especially if Silva kind of rushes in on him. But if Silva catches him big and stays patient and just kind of walks him down, it could be an early night potentially for Puelles. For my official prediction, I'm going to go with Claudio Puelles on this one. To be honest with you, I only see really one path to victory for Silva, and that's catching him with a big punch, which is his preferred path, so he definitely can do that. The fighting line kind of shows it. This is a pick'em fight. But I do trust Puelles' ability to get the fight to the ground, keep himself relatively safe before he gets down there, especially given the fact that Silva sometimes just doesn't throw enough volume out there. And I also trust that, like I said, Puelles is going to get the fight to the ground, and once he does, I think he's going to have some good success on top. He's going to be able to control him. He's going to be able to control Silva, use his high-level jiu-jitsu to at least melt the clock. I think Silva is going to be able to defend himself when he's on the ground. He's never been submitted before in a professional fight. The streak will probably continue this week, and I don't see the path for Puelles to get a knockout. I mean, he could as well, but I don't think a knockout is the most likely outcome for him either. So I'm going to take Puelles in this one by decision. Last fight on the prelims is Jose Medina sitting on a +310 underdog, and Dusko Todorovic sitting at a -390 favorite. However the fuck you say his name, I don't think I'm going to have to say his name too much because I don't think either of these guys are lasting too long in the UFC, at this point. To be honest with you, this is, in my opinion, the 2 worst fighters in the middleweight division. I think Medina could probably go down another weight class. I know he fought on the Ultimate Fighter at light heavyweight. He's fighting at middleweight now, and he still seems undersized. But, you know, he's not very good anywhere. His striking is not good. He has almost no technical abilities in his striking, which can work to his favor sometimes. Sometimes a more unorthodox approach can be beneficial. But the best part about his striking is his durability. You know, he's a fucking punching bag, you know. He's there to be hit. He's taken damage in fights. And he also showed in his last fight he can be knocked out. He kind of had a stigma. Anybody can get knocked out. That's just, let me preface that with that. Anybody in the world can get knocked out if they get hit on the button. But he kind of had a stigma about him where it's like, he's really, really hard to put away. But he showed in his last fight against Ateba Gutierrez that he can be put away. Ateba caught him with a straight knee and put his fucking lights out. So he's not good with his striking. He's the best thing he does outside of his durability is when he makes it really fucking dirty and just brawls. He's got to really treat this fight like a fucking bar fight if he wants to have any success in trying to win. Tordovic is definitely going to be the more polished striker in this fight, but like I said, that's not really saying much at all compared to Medina. He throws straighter punches and snappier punches, and I think the straighter the punches he can throw this fight, the more success he's going to have. If I was him, I would avoid the only path to victory for Medina, which is to brawl. But Tordovic has showed in the past, in the Jordan Wright fight, that he can brawl. He can lean on his brawling skills if he has to. He did that in a strategic way. He kind of gave up the first round, got out-grappled a little bit, went back to the next round, realized that Jordan Wright was a little bit tired, so he tried to put the pressure on, and he just started throwing big and wild. And he was able to find the finish there. So I don't hold it against him that he's brawled before. I think it would be very smart this fight to at least avoid that. Another thing I don't really like about Tordovic is that his hands tend to be a little bit low and his chin is straight up. He's durable. He showed that he's durable. Not as durable as Medina, but he's shown that he's durable in fights. But he's also kind of leaving himself open to getting knocked out. If he goes in there with his chin open against somebody who's used to brawling, or maybe not used to it, but somebody that is way more comfortable brawling, he could get knocked out for sure. When it comes to their grappling, neither guy is really that high of a level of grappler, but Tordovic is definitely going to have the grappling advantage here. I did watch in the Mansour Abdul Malik fight. Abdul Malik dropped him with a big punch early in the fight and started landing some crazy ground and pound. And I do like that Tordovic was able to have the wherewithal to go for a leg lock submission. He didn't really have much of a chance in getting it, but it was something that Mansour Abdul Malik had to respect enough to stop the punches from coming. So he showed that he can keep himself relatively safe if he is in some trouble in the bottom, but it also shows that he has pretty okay, I'll give him that, pretty okay grappling. Like I've said, Tordovic has been taken down before and controlled in past fights. He got taken down and controlled by Jordan Wright, who's no longer in the UFC. Every single person that Tordovic has beaten has been cut from the organization because they're just not good. He's kind of become the standard now, where if you lose to him, you're out. And I also think Medina, being 0-2 right now, if you lose to that dude, you're out too. Loser of this fight goes home, gets cut from the organization. The winner gets one more fight, and they'll probably lose to that one, honestly. But as far as the grappling goes for Medina, he has shown before that in the Zachary Reese fight, he was able to get a takedown with a double unders. So he kind of landed into it though a little bit. He landed the double unders, and he used his momentum to kind of just go ahead and throw that leg over there for a trip. So, it shows that he's got good awareness at least, but I don't think his grappling is that good either. For my official prediction, I'm going to go with Tordovic on this one. I just think that he's just better at every aspect of MMA except for his durability. He doesn't take damage as much as Medina can. That's pretty much it. That's the only thing Medina has the edge over, and I think he's going to take more damage in this fight. There's two paths to victory for Medina from my perspective in this fight. He could catch him and knock him out, which I already talked about a little bit. The other path, which I think is almost just as likely, is that Tordovic literally punches himself out from trying to finish this dude and exhausts himself, and Medina starts to take control just because Tordovic just gets too tired. That could happen too, but I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. I think there's just a lot more paths to victory for Tordovic. I think he could get him, he could KO him, he could work the body to go to the head and get a KO. He could submit him, and he could win this fight by decision. But for my official prediction, I am going to go with the KO prop. So Tordovic by KO. Next fight we're going to get into is Santiago Luna versus Quang Lee. Luna is sitting at a slight favorite at -132, and Quang Lee is a slight underdog at +112. Luna is making his UFC debut this weekend on short notice. He's a 6-0 fighter. He's got 6 finishes. He hasn't really fought anybody really of value. He did fight a guy from Chechnya or whatever. I didn't get a chance to watch that fight. I couldn't find it anywhere. But, just having him fight a guy from Chechnya tells me that he probably has decent takedown defense at minimum, because he was able to win that fight. He looks to use body lock takedowns when he wants to mix in wrestling, but he also has good leg attacks as well. Because he doesn't really have a lot of footage, I wasn't able to find a lot of footage of him actually grappling. I mean, there's a little bit out there. I've seen him take the back and shit like that and get submissions that way, but it didn't last super long, and he didn't get a whole lot of resistance there. So I know that he did grow up wrestling. I think he grew up in Mexico or something like that. So he had wrestling experience, and he has jiu-jitsu experience as well, obviously. But there isn't really that much information that I have on his grappling skills. There isn't a whole lot of information on his striking, but there's definitely more for sure. He has pretty decent boxing. He definitely works behind the jab pretty well. When he's in range, when he's in really close, he likes to throw in, do some dirty boxing and use his elbows a little bit. He's got really big power in his right hand. I've seen that in one of his fights where he landed a clean right hand and put the dude out. Lee is 1-2 in the UFC, so obviously we have a lot more footage on him. The one thing that I noted when it comes to his striking is he tends to get sucked into a brawl pretty easy. When he's in a brawl, obviously, it's kind of a 50-50 type of a situation. For him, it seems to be about 50-50, whether he wins the exchange or loses the exchange. And we have seen in the past where, when he starts to brawl, he can get knocked out. And the Zhao Long fight, obviously they started brawling, and Long is a power puncher, so he caught him with a big power shot and put his lights out. So it's just a risk that he's willing to take sometimes. But I don't know, like I said, 50-50 success rate. To be honest with you, Lee's striking is just okay, I would say. It's pretty mid. It's not super high level. What I did notice about him is he tends to headhunt, so he's always looking to punch the dude in the fucking head or face. He's not really looking to mix in body shots, which is something I did see Luna work in really nicely with his boxing. He's willing to go down to the body, and that could be a factor here, a difference maker in this fight. A guy that's willing to work to the body and kind of keep the guard moving is probably going to have more success. But one thing that it's also important to note is Lee's guard tends to be kind of open. He's there to get hit. So if he's going to be there to get hit with a guy who seems like a pretty decent boxer in Luna, he's going to probably get touched up a little bit this fight. For my official prediction, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Because I have limited footage on Luna, it's kind of hard for me to predict. But I am leaning towards Luna to get this one done, and it's almost a bet against Quang Lee, to be honest with you. I think Quang Lee's a good fighter, but I think there's holes in his game that Luna can exploit, particularly in the striking. Like I said, he's pretty predictable in his headhunting. Sometimes he gets a little overly emotional when he starts to brawl. I don't know if that's emotions or whatever, but the fight gets the better of him a little bit. I also think there's going to be some youthful arrogance or ignorance or whatever the saying is. Youthful ignorance when it comes to Santiago Luna. He's young, 21 years old, 6-0. He was 3-0 in the amateur, so he's never lost a competitive fight. And that being just a young guy who's never experienced defeat, I think he's going to be able to come into the big show. And if he's able to handle and calm down his nerves, I think, like I said, there's going to be some youthful ignorance in that, where he's just going to be able to, he's going to be more willing to take some risks and find more success because he is taking those risks. So for my official prediction, I'm going to go with Luna by decision. Moving on to our next fight, we have Alexander Hernandez versus Diego Ferreira. Fernandez is sitting at a +100 underdog, and Ferreira is at a -118 favorite. Hernandez is riding a 3-fight win streak right now. All 3 of those fights has been since he's returned back to the 155-pound division. I believe he started at 155, dropped down to 45, and just didn't really have a lot of success at 45. Probably was a little bit too much of a weight cut. As he's gotten older, he's gotten a little bigger, which is typically what people do. So now he went bumped up back to 155, and he started riding a 3-fight win streak. He seems like he's adjusting well to the weight class. He started a little slow. I think he maybe started and with his fighting style, I think he was afraid a little bit to get tired. When you cut a bunch of weight and then you go exhaust your cardio, even if it is 24 or 36 hours after the weigh-ins, that big weight cut definitely affects your cardio. So I think him dropping down to 155 lets him open up a little bit more. And we started to see that definitely in his last fight against Chase Hooper. He was a pretty big underdog in that fight. Obviously, you guys probably remember, I broke it down on my channel. I got it wrong. But it wasn't that long ago. So he was able to get the late first round TKO. And the one thing that he was able to show us is that he still has big power in his hands. He showed before that he has big power and he punches pretty hard. But the one thing about Alexander Hernandez, the main issue that I've always had with him is that he just doesn't do enough. He doesn't throw enough volume. So I'm hoping after that Chase Hooper win, he starts to realize that that power is still there and he can really start to open up again. I think Hernandez is, and I don't really know exactly what goes on in this camp. Obviously, I'm just some fucking asshole. But, I think one of the things about him is he started to become a little too technical. He started to try to win point fights, and he's just not built to be a point fighter. His name's like the Big Ape or something like that, his nickname. That's not a finesse nickname. It's not a nickname that you give yourself because you're really smooth with it. That's not his style. So I think, when he started to try to do the point fighting and try to go tit for tat with guys, that's when he started losing some decisions. And recently, even since he bumped up to 155, he tried that early on, the first couple fights against Kurt Holloway and dudes like that. And once he was able to get away from doing the point fight stuff, he was able to find more success. Hernandez, like I've said, he tends to be a little reserved, but there is some good in that as well. One of the things that I'd like to see him hang on to as he's becoming more aggressive again as a fighter is he never overextended on his punches. He always kept his punches really tight, and he never put himself in a bad position because he's swinging at air. So even if he swings and he misses, because he doesn't overextend, he doesn't put himself in bad positions. Diego Ferreira has really solid leg kicks. You guys probably already know this shit. He got really nice body kicks as well. And the one thing he showed us in the Michael Johnson fight is he still carries some big power in his hands. Diego Ferreira is getting a little older. He's 40 years old. But he showed us recently that he's not slowing down at all. And he looks really good for a 40-year-old. Ferreira has fought in pretty much everybody that's everybody in the lightweight division. The most stacked division there is. He's 10-6 in the organization. Some of the dudes that he's beaten, some Russian dudes and shit that don't really have a name. He's beaten guys that have really good records. Then, if they come in with really good records from the Russia or the Caucasus area, they're probably pretty fucking good at fighting. And this dude, one after another, was knocking these dudes down. Like I said, they don't have a lot of name value, but it just shows that he's a really high-level fighter. He's been high-level for a long time, and he's had a sneaky successful career. Like I said, he's 10-6 in the UFC. His 6 losses are just to Beneil Dariush twice, Dustin Poirier, Gregor Gillespie, Mateus Gamrot, and Grant Dawson. Those dudes are no shame at all to lose to. Not at all. But the one thing I noticed when I look at the guys that he's lost to, outside of Dustin Poirier, they're pretty high-level grapplers. So it seems to take a high-level grappler to get him out of his game. I love Diego Ferreira's grittiness as a fighter. He showed in his most recent fight, was it his most recent fight? Yeah. He showed in his most recent fight against Mateus Rebecki that he's just got a lot of grit in him still, especially, like I said, for a 40-year-old guy. Rebecki really came in that fight really aggressively, which is, that's what he does every single fight. But he came in and pretty much dominated the first round. He was outstriking him. He eventually caught him and knocked him down late in the first round. And, Ferreira just realized that, hey, I think he's starting to slow down a little bit. If I just put the pressure on him, I think I can start to, take control of this fight. And that's exactly what he did. He dominated him in the second round. He dominated him in the third round. And he found a finish late in the third round. It just goes to show how tough and gritty he is as a fighter. Another thing I really like about Ferreira is how well-rounded he is. Like I said, he carries big power in his hands. He mixes the body well, mixes leg shot, kicks to the leg really well. But he also has really high-level grappling, really high-level jiu-jitsu. Most of his wins have come by way of submission. So because he's so versatile as a fighter, he's able to move from plan A to plan B if it's not going his way. And we've seen him do that in past fights. We saw him make some adjustments in the Michael Johnson fight, and he was able to get the big KO. Obviously, the Rebecki fight, he made adjustments in that fight. He was able to get the KO, the ground and pound in the third. So because he has the skills, he can switch from one skill to the other pretty fluidly. And like I said, if it's plan A ain't working, he goes to plan B. Guys, I've been going back and forth on this one for my predictions. I looked up a couple MMA channels to maybe get some inspiration, get a perspective that I wasn't getting when I was breaking down footage, and it didn't really help me out at all because everybody's going back and forth on it too. It's pretty dead even in the middle. Every channel that I looked up, Tapology didn't help me out. I didn't help myself out. So maybe you can help yourself because this is not the one where I think I can do it for you. Anybody that says that they're confident in this pick, just either doesn't know what they're talking about or is fucking lying. That's just the God's honest truth. But I've gone back and forth, and right now, my official prediction, I'm going to go Diego Ferreira by decision. Moving on to the next fight, Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Gastelum was sitting at a minus 235, and Stoltzfus is at plus 194. Listen, you guys know Kelvin Gastelum. If you're watching my channel, you've probably been watching Kelvin Gastelum fight for a long time. So I'm going to spare you the in-depth breakdown on this one. But one thing we notice about Kelvin Gastelum striking is that he's not the most technical striker. But if there's anything that we know about MMA striking, the prettier striker is not always the better striker when it comes to MMA. This is not the sweet science. This is not boxing. This is not Muay Thai. You know, there's 4-ounce gloves and a lot of disciplines mixed at the same time. So you can get away with some sloppy striking, or I guess some non-traditional striking. And Kelvin Gastelum is a perfect example of that. Calvin is known for his durability. You guys know this. He's never been knocked out before. And, you know, it's pretty crazy to think he's never been knocked out for as long as he's been in the UFC. And he's fought dudes like Joe Pyfer, Jared Cannonier, Robert Whitaker, Israel Adesanya, Uriah Hall. These are some of the biggest punchers in middleweight history, and he's never been knocked out by him. So, I mean, it just goes to show how durable he is, and he really leans on that durability to keep himself in fights. I think Kelvin doesn't really get enough credit for how, you know, underrated his grappling is. I'm not saying he's super high level, but he's got wrestling experience, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, been a black belt for a while. His scrambles are decent, at least. I think the one thing he's known for is his durability, his big right hand. He's most known for not making fucking weight, let's be honest here, and we're doing that again this weekend. But outside of that, you know, his grappling, like I said, it's pretty underrated. He does win scrambles, and, you know, that's all I gotta say about that. Dustin Stoltzfus is known for his grappling skills, but he uses his striking to set up his grappling pretty decently. He likes to walk forward, put pressure on guys, kind of get into brawl situations, and either put guys against the cage or shoot takedowns. Because he does that, though, like I said, he gets himself drawn into brawls, and we've seen that work for him in the past. Against Marc-Andre Barriault, he got a big overhand right and put his lights out. But we've also seen how it can put him into trouble. That's how Bruno Fier was able to get a knockout. Stoltzfus was pressuring forward and landed to a big punch and put his own lights out. So he lived and died by the sword. Something important to note in this fight when it comes to Stoltzfus's striking is that when he fights southpaws, he does spin a lot of kicks to the body, a lot of teeps to the body. When a southpaw is sitting, you know, with a stance like that, and obviously a traditional fighter or an orthodox fighter, the body's just more exposed. So he really does a good job of mixing in those kicks to the body. And when it comes to like somebody like Gastelum, you're not going to knock him out with head kicks. I can see Stoltzfus going to the body a lot here. Stoltzfus has really good top pressure when he's able to score takedowns and get on top. We saw that especially in the Marc-Andre Barriault fight. He was able to get a takedown pretty early on in the fight, and he had really good downward pressure, really good shoulder pressure, to where it was really hard for Andre Barriault to work to his feet. He was able to get to his feet, you know, very late in the round, but he was exhausted when he did get up. And like I said, Stoltzfus drew him into a brawl and kind of played right into Stoltzfus's hand, and was able to get the knockout. So I think the really good grappling and the way he grapples, how it zaps opponents, how it zaps their energy, that kind of sets that stuff up. Like I said, Stoltzfus is known for his jiu-jitsu skills. He's got a wide range of submissions on his record. He's got 4 rear naked chokes, a knee bar, arm triangle, a ghillie, and a twister. I mean, he's pretty much done it all when it comes to the submissions. So he's a threat in the submission game pretty much anywhere he goes, in any position. For my official prediction, I'm leaning towards Kelvin Gastelum to get this one done. I think he's just been in there with the tougher guys in his career. I mean, since, you know, pretty much 2015, 2016, he's fought some of the best in the world, and he kind of has been on that trajectory the whole time. He's taken a step down a little bit, and the Joe Pyfer fight didn't really go his way, but he started to hold his own towards the end of that fight, and I think he probably won the 3rd round even. But, you know, this is another step down from the competition, so we're probably 2 steps removed at least from where he's used to fighting. Like I said, the best in the world, the Izzies, the Jared Cannoniers, all these guys. So, you know, it's going to be a step down. I think this is probably the most favorable matchup Gastelum has had in a long time, and I think he's going to lean on his durability to get him through this fight. As long as he throws enough volume out on his feet and he's able to stay on his feet and not get taken down, I see him getting a win here, and I even see him getting the KO, actually. He hasn't gotten a KO since 2017 when he knocked out Bisping, which obviously that's been a while. But, I think the KO prop is live here. I think Stoltzfus is there to get hit, and he's shown that in past fights, and Kelvin likes to hit people with that big overhand. So if he catches him clean with that overhand, it could be lights out. Moving on to the next fight, we have Rafa Garcia versus Jared Gordon. Rafa Garcia is at a plus 190 underdog, and Jared Gordon is at a minus 230 favorite. Best way to describe Jared Gordon and his fighting style is war of attrition. That's pretty much it. He's willing to take damage to get damage. The dude is a pressure fighter. He loves putting constant pressure on guys. He loves to work himself into dirty boxing range, where he can grab the back of their neck and land uppercuts and punches to the head and shit like that. Elbows. He's a dirty fighter, man. He really is. He's fun as shit to watch. I'm a huge fan of Jared Gordon. Love his fighting style. The short, bald guy's got to stick together, right? Jared Gordon has showed in past fights, especially his recent fights, that he's got really high-level fight IQ. He's always looking for damage, and he's willing to be very fluid between the disciplines of MMA to find that damage. A good example of that is he'll shoot takedowns, put guys against the cage, not really with the intention of getting him down. If he gets him down, he takes what he can get. But he's not going to overexert himself and spend 2 minutes dragging on people's legs and trying to pull those legs out from underneath them to get double legs and shit like that. Or work to the body and pummel and do all that shit and land knees just to find one takedown the guy might jump right back up from. He's not willing to do all that. He's a more economical fighter. So he'll put guys against the cage, break from him, hit him with the two or three punch combo, and then get right back in on their legs. 1, it lands damage, and 2, it's a really nice setup to improve your position on the cage. He's just really, really high IQ and just really fun to watch. One thing to note about Jared Gordon is sometimes he tends to, he moves his head a lot, which is always really good. He does a lot of the right shit that you're supposed to do, but sometimes he tends to duck his head the same way over and over again, and it makes him a little bit predictable. To me, that I'm not too hung up on that, though, to be honest with you. I'm not too critical of it, just because, like I said, he's war of attrition guy. He's willing to take damage to get damage. The one thing I do like when he does that shit is he keeps a high guard, so no matter what happens, he's not going to absorb all of the damage or a clean shot, but he's at least willing to move his head, and that's what I really like. Some guys that are, have that live and die by the sword, war of attrition guys, Stoltzfus, for example, they like to march in and brawl, but they don't move their fucking head. Jared Gordon does the right things by moving his head. He still tries to keep it relatively technical, even though, like I said, he wants to make it dirty. He also leads really well behind his jab. He's a southpaw, so he's always flicking that right hand out there. We saw that in the Nasrat Haqparast fight. He lost a split decision in that fight, but he kept flicking that jab out there, and that was what made it a really close fight, and it really could have gone either way. Rafa Garcia has pretty solid boxing. He leans on his boxing for sure and his striking. Throws a lot of jabs. He likes to pump the jab out there. We saw that in the Clay Guida fight. He kind of tore Clay Guida up because he didn't really have to do much besides throw the jab out there, because Clay Guida does what he does, and that's just march forward and whatever happens, happens. Reckless abandonment, right? Garcia was able to keep it a pretty simple fight. Just keep moving his feet, circling, kind of taking steps backwards. And every time Guida got in range, pump the jab out there. Pump the jab. If he got too close to range, 1-2, right down the pipe. And it was straight shots the whole night, and it was an easy blueprint to beat Clay Guida for sure. One thing I did notice, though, about Garcia is, especially in that fight, his hands kind of seem a little slow. I think he'll be all right in this fight against Jared Gordon, because Jared Gordon's not known for having really fast hands. So it's going to be, these guys have probably slower than average hand speed in the lightweight division in the UFC. Probably a lot faster than the average guy, a lot faster than me probably. But just for the division, they seem really slow. I would even give Jared Gordon the slight edge on the hand speed. Garcia has decent grappling too. You really have to be pretty well-rounded in these divisions. Pretty much 155 and down. If you have a giant hole in your game, people are going to exploit it. But if there is any hole in his game, it's probably the takedown defense. He was taken down, not over and over, but he was taken down early in the first round against Grant Dawson and controlled. And then in the second round, he's taken down again. And then 2 minutes later, ground and pound TKO, the fight's over. So we've seen him be able to get taken down and controlled on the mat. But it's Grant Dawson, you know, like this dude does this to everybody. So I don't know if it's really a reflection on Grant Dawson being that good or if Garcia just accepts bottom position. I think it's probably a little bit of both, honestly. Garcia was a little too accepting on bottom position. He wasn't really kicking on the ground or doing anything with his legs to get up. And if you're only working with your arms when you're on your back, there's just no way you're getting out. For my official prediction, I'm going with Jared Gordon. When you're fighting Jared Gordon, you don't have any option but to fight his style of fight. He brings his style of fight to you. There's really no running away from it. We saw that against Paddy Pimblett even. Paddy Pimblett has that big giant frame where he can use his range a little bit. And Jared Gordon was still able to work inside and still able to get to his dirty boxing and land his big overhand left that he loves to land. So I think Garcia is going to have a hard time keeping Gordon away from him, keep him out of his face. So it's going to be a Jared Gordon style fight. And I think Garcia, you know, Jared Gordon's riding a 2-fight knockout streak, but I think it's going to end this weekend. Garcia has only been TKO'd the one time, and I think he's going to be durable enough to get to the end of the bell in this one. So I'll take Jared Gordon by decision. We're going to move into the co-main event of the evening. It's going to be Rob Font versus David Martinez. Rob Font is sitting at a -118 favorite, and Martinez is at a +100 underdog. Rob Font is really known for his durability in fights. He's lost 8 times professionally in his career, and 7 of those losses were by decision. He only lost 1 time by finish, and that was all the way back in 2017. The one thing that separates Rob Font, I guess, from other bantamweights in the division, obviously he's an elite bantamweight in the UFC division, but it's his boxing that separates him. His boxing is really high level. He's got a really great jab that he does a really good job working behind. He's got big power in both of his hands. He moves his head really well. He's always moving his head, and he works really nice body shots too. When he starts landing combinations, he likes to extend the combinations to score points on the judges' scorecards. So, I mean, his boxing is really high level, and like I said, that's what separates him from not every other, but most bantamweights in the division. Rob Font definitely has a sprawl and brawl approach. He wants to keep the fight on the feet where he's most comfortable. We have seen in the past where opponents have just wrestle-fucked him a little bit and just, like I said, just out-grappled him. So, you know, in the Kyler Phillips fight, we saw Kyler Phillips try to implement that strategy. But one thing to note about Rob Font is he's always making improvements in between fights. He's realized a few fights ago that that's kind of a hole in his game, and he's making improvements on working on sprawls first and foremost. That's, you know, the best way to not grapple is just to avoid it entirely. And if he does have to grapple, he's doing a really good job of learning how to get off his back. So getting wrestle-fucked just doesn't happen nearly as much. One thing I really like about Rob Font is his pacing throughout the fight. He doesn't necessarily start slow, but he always tends to like kind of trend upwards as the fight goes on. Once he starts to find his rhythm, he increases his volume, his output, and just his pace in general. So once he gets his rhythm going, he becomes a more dangerous fighter. This is an MMA betting channel, so I have found a stat here I think would be important to share. In the last 10 fights for Rob Font, Vegas has been incorrect 7 out of 10 times as far as the odds go. He's just a hard guy to pick sometimes, and whatever you expect to happen in a Rob Font fight, most of the time, not all the time, but sometimes that just doesn't go the way you expect. He does have a pretty traditional approach. We know he's going to go out there, sprawl and brawl, lean on his boxing. That's just a given. But as far as the outcome goes, Vegas gets it wrong all the time, so don't worry about it if you get it wrong too. Speaking of wrong odds, I mean, the odds on this one has got me thinking, like, there's something I'm missing here. Because, I mean, Rob Font is a seasoned vet. He's still at the top of the game. He's proven that his last 2 fights. And then you have Martinez, who's 1-0 in the UFC. And this fight is basically a pick'em. I don't fully understand it, but one thing I do know is Martinez has some heavy leg kicks. That dude invests a lot throughout the fight with leg kicks. On the Contender Series fight, he fought a dude, Xavier Franklin, and I think he kicked him in the leg over 30 times, which is insane. The fight that I watched before that was against a guy named Jose Zarez, and he invested in leg kicks throughout that fight. He didn't really do it early in the fight, but the second and third round, he started investing more in the leg kicks, and he found a finish in the 4th round. I don't think there's a coincidence in that. I think when he starts investing those leg kicks, people start to wilt. Martinez uses feints to keep his opponents guessing as the fight goes on. He seems to utilize feints probably better than most people. Sometimes people be throwing feints out there and their opponent just really isn't biting on it. They just know that it's a feint, it's not a real strike, and it doesn't really get the neurological system going. But when Martinez does feints, I think because it's a combination of how well he does feints and also because he throws really hard in his strikes. So when he's giving those bites, those feints out there, people tend to react. Martinez is also a solid boxer. I think this fight is going to be primarily a boxing match, which is going to be sick for us. I think we're going to really enjoy that. But one thing I noticed about Martinez is he's really good at either going forward or backwards. He doesn't seem like he really has a preference. Whatever his opponent gives him is what he takes. I've seen him in past fights against Jose Zarez. He was on the back foot almost the entire fight, and he did really well. It didn't really seem to bother him. In his Contender Series fight against Xavier Franklin, he was on the front foot almost the entire... Oh, no, he was on the back foot almost the entire time in that fight, too. Simone Oliveira, he was on the front foot during that fight. And it's not all the time throughout these fights. He'll go backwards and forwards. It doesn't seem to bother him too much at all. In his fight against Jose Zarez, which is probably his most impressive regional scene win, Jose Zarez is 26-11. So that's a pretty decent win for a regional scene fight. Zarez was really focused on getting the takedowns and getting them early. And the one thing that I really appreciated for David Martinez is his ability to sprawl and defend those takedowns. He was able to meet a lot of the takedowns already in the underhook position, at least with one underhook. So he's already in a good position to be able to defend the takedowns. And if he got pushed against the cage, he wouldn't allow himself to stay there long. So he always is looking to win the aesthetic of a fight and always also looking to keep the fight where he wants to, which is right in boxing range. Like I said, this fight is kind of tricky for me to pick, and it's only really because the line is fucking me up, really. I was leaning towards Rob Font before I started doing my research. After I did my research, I'm still leaning towards Rob Font. I just don't understand why it's so close, and it just seems like there's something I'm missing. This kid's only 1-0 in the UFC. I mean, he's 27 years old, so he's pretty developed into his MMA career, but it also shows that he's still got time. Rob Font has a decade of life on him and probably of MMA experience as well. So I think the savviness of being the older fighter and the more seasoned fighter, I think that's what's going to get this fight done here. As long as Rob Font can deal with the leg kicks. I mean, he's fought Jose Aldo before, but that was kind of after Jose Aldo kind of started getting away from the leg kicks. I think he only landed like 10 of leg kicks that fight. If he's able to deal with the leg kicks, I think he's going to be able to get this one done. I really like the counter-striking of Rob Font in this fight. So for my official prediction, I'm going Rob Font by decision. Last fight we're getting into is obviously the main event. It's the reason why we're here. We have Diego Lopez sitting at a plus 210 underdog, and he's fighting John Silva. He's at a minus 255 favorite. Diego Lopez is probably most known for his grappling abilities. He does a lot of jiu-jitsu tournaments on the side. He's always competing in grappling events and shit like that. He's got most of his wins are from submissions. He's got 12 submission wins out of the 26 that he has. So obviously he's high-level grappling. But he's leaned on his striking more since he's been in the UFC at least. He has one submission win in the UFC. The rest of his victories have come by way of decision. And most of those fights, he's on his feet striking. So, I mean, that goes to show how he's a pretty well-rounded fighter, but he's dangerous anywhere he goes. Lopez does a really good job of keeping himself safe on his feet. He always keeps a really high guard, and he rolls really nicely with punches. And he also has a big fucking head, too, which really helps absorbing big shots. So, you know, those three combinations at the same time, he's really hard to finish. He's really hard to at least knock out. He hasn't been knocked out since, like, 2017 or something like that, 2016. So it's because of mainly those things. Lopez has been leaning on his boxing and pretty much his boxing entirely to get victories in the UFC. We saw that in the Brian Ortega fight. He caught him with a really nice check left hook that dropped Ortega really early on the fight, caused damage, and it just seemed like Ortega was never able to kind of shake that off. The fight made it to the final horn, but you know, like I said, I think the damage that Lopez did early on in the fight just seemed to have an effect as the fight went on. So he's got, like I said, he's got a really nice check hook. Another thing that he really has a nice another strike that he has that's really good is his leg kicks. He doesn't really throw them as much as other people will throw leg kicks. If somebody's going to invest in leg kicks, they usually do it early and often in fights. Lopez seems to choose those pretty sporadic, and I think it almost works in his favor because his opponents don't really see it coming, so they're not looking to check it, and he also times them really nicely where they're putting weight on it. So although he doesn't throw as many leg kicks as, for instance, David Martinez, but I think the leg kicks that he does throw still do a lot of damage. One thing that I've noticed in a couple of his fights is he tends to throw really hard in the first couple of rounds, and he starts to fade a little bit as the fight goes on. He definitely faded in the Volkanovski fight. He faded in the Rob Font fight, or the Dan Ige fight. Started fading a little bit in the Brian Ortega fight, but he did damage already, so I think Ortega was also fading, so he was able to kind of work through that one. But, especially against the Dan Ige fight. Dan Ige took that fight on like 4 hours notice, and he was the fresher fighter in the third round, and Lopez had just finished training camp. It's not because Lopez is not in good shape. You can look at the dude and tell he's in good shape, but when you're throwing as hard as you can and swinging at air and doing that for 10 minutes while you're also grappling and doing all the other aspects of fighting, it's going to make you really tired. Jean Silva is 16-2, and he's 5-0 in the UFC. 15 of his 16 wins have come by way of finish. He's got 11 knockouts, or is it 11? He's got 12 knockouts and 3 submissions. This dude, Jean Silva, we all know Jean Silva. This motherfucker is dangerous everywhere. He just seems like the type of guy, not seems like, he is the type of guy that if you enter the void and you're not protecting yourself, he's going to knock you out. He's going to put your fucking lights out, catch you on the chin and put you out. If you are a little bit lackadaisical in your grappling, or if you're forcing bad shots because he's already kind of kicking your ass in the striking, which we saw in the Bryce Mitchell fight, he's going to choke you out. He's really good with those front chokes, those gillies and shit. He's just really good with that stuff. So, I mean, it doesn't matter where the fight goes. He's always looking to get the finish, and he's just really dangerous everywhere. Jean Silva seems like he gets to a point in a fight where he's just done fucking with the dude. He always is out there, kind of teasing him, taunting them. But it seems like there's something that just snaps in his brain at some point in the fight where he's like, all right, I'm done playing my food. I'm going to get this fight over with. This dude has, like I said, 15 of his 16 wins come by way of decision. I feel like he lost a couple. He's 16-2. So the 2 fights that he lost was early in his career, and both of them were by decision. So I think he just got to a point where he's like, all right, fuck this. I'm not going to the scorecards anymore. I'm just going to go finish dudes. And that's what he's been doing ever since. Silva seems like he's got almost a next level sense as far as like protecting himself in the octagon. He seems like he already knows when a guy's going to come in to strike. So most of the time he's either just gliding out and getting out of the way. If he's already in the way, he puts his hands up and he rolls really nicely with punches. Better than Lopez, honestly. He rolls better with punches. He never gets hit clean. I mean, go back and watch any of his fights in the UFC, pre-UFC. He does not get hit clean. And he's also doing this. You're not able to touch him. He's touching you every time you come in the void. Every time you try to do a takedown or something, he's jumping on your neck, trying to choke you out. And he's doing this all at the same time while taunting you and intimidating you. I mean, it's just a menacing presence that he has in the octagon. And that's why he's gained so much popularity in just the 2 years he's been around. For my official prediction, I'm going with the hot hand. I'm going with Jean Silva. I know that the Fighting Nerds didn't have a good week last week. I think Jean Silva's a different type of cat, though. He's already expressed in the past that he's had a really tough upbringing, and this is MMA. A lot of these dudes have had tough upbringings, but he's probably seen some shit even these, most of his fellow MMA fighters just haven't seen. Just life experiences that they haven't done. There's some guys that have lived such a tough life that going into the octagon and fighting in front of thousands of people for money is just fun. And you can sense that with Jean Silva. You can sense that with Khamzat Chimaev back in the day on his rise up. The excitement to get in the octagon and go do damage to somebody. Not a lot of people think that way. Not a lot of people operate that way. So it's really easy for me to pick Jean Silva. This is not pressure for him. He's faced real pressure in life. This is not pressure. So I think he's going to get this fight done by finish. I think the Diego Lopez's big-ass head is going to really help him absorb the shots. So I don't see this fight going by way of knockout, although it definitely could, because John Silva obviously has proven he does that. But I think what's going to happen is John Silva is going to end up hurting him a little bit and making Diego Lopez take a bad shot, just make one bad decision. That's all it takes with him. It's one bad decision, and he's just going to get on around his throat and get the submission. That prop is sitting at plus 1,100 right now, so I'm definitely going out on a limb on this one. But I'm really, really feeling like he's going to keep the finishing streak alive. But there's just something about that big-ass fucking head that I don't think Lopez can get knocked out like that. So we're going long shot odds here. Silva by decision, or by submission. All right, guys, keeping this super fucking short. Sorry we've been late this week. Obviously, we're getting this one out late. I'm going to give you guys my parlay video as soon as I build it. I want to give you at least 6 hours or so before the fight starts so you can look at it, kind of assemble your own parlays, tail mine if you want, or whatever. So I am going to get a couple hours of sleep, and I'm going to build us a fucking winning parlay. We hit last week, and we're going to keep the streak going alive. So that's it. I'm fucking out of here. I'm going to go to sleep.